All right.
Okay, hi, I'm Amani, if you don't know. So, how many of us have played a first-person shooter video game? No, I have. Yeah, they look real, like the video games are becoming more and more realistic every time. That's one of the main things people review them on. But they don't feel real. I mean, you know you're not actually killing people. And Americans downplay the seriousness of violent video games, music, cartoons, because they don't feel real. My claim is that pop culture has desensitized America, and that we've numbed our reactions to how violence is portrayed. So first of all, I'll talk about how music has shown us that they emphasize violence, but we don't think about it, and how video games are violent, and cartoons as well. Okay, so first of all, rap music has become all about gangs, sex, everything like that. And children these days are looking at rap artists as role models. And so first of all, we think about how we glorify their lives. Think about Tupac. He lived a pretty questionable lifestyle, and then he came back in a hologram, and everybody was like, oh my God, Tupac, you know? But that's somebody that our children should not be looking to as a role model. That's someone that we should be downplaying, if anything. Also, songs emphasize gang affiliations. Excuse me, but I'm going to quote Snoop Dogg in saying, I keep a blue flag hanging out my backside, but only on the left side. Yeah, that's the Crip side. What? And artists like Lil Wayne with teardrop tattoos. It has been said that teardrop tattoos can symbolize a friend being killed, a family member being raped, but we all know, like, if you have a teardrop, you killed someone. And that's obviously not portrayed in his 8 months of jail time. Okay, I'll go on to cartoons. Wait, I have quotes in here. Oh, shit. Cartoons, sorry. Definitely are teaching children that violence is funny. How is violence funny? A quote in a study by S.J. Hirsch says, in fact, frequency of violence in cartoons is higher than in live-action dramas or comedies. As a consequence, youth are more likely to view media-depicted violence during Saturday morning cartoons than primetime television hours. So our children are watching cartoon characters kill each other while adults aren't even saying that. Cartoon characters have ongoing battles such as Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner chasing each other around who knows where, Tom and Jerry, Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd, and even Scooby-Doo chasing down villains. And then there's also our adult cartoons where Kenny gets killed in every episode. Additionally, weaponry is being treated as funny, like somebody putting a gun in someone's face and it shooting out a flag that says bang. Anvils being dropped on people, pianos being dropped on people. It's being treated as a joke when in actuality, violence is a serious issue in this country. And then finally, video games are becoming more and more realistic and more violent. And there's a study done by scientists. It's titled, "The More You Play, the More Aggressive You Become." And it showed that violent video games do cause an increase in aggression. The effects are cumulative and they can be long-lasting. In sum, this study was a 3-day-long thing. Obviously, you can't do a year-long, 2-year-long study where a child plays video games for 8 hours a day, which they actually do. But anyway, it's a 3-day-long thing, and in the end, it showed that these children, after playing 6 hours of video games a day, showed more aggressive behavior towards a doll or another person than children who just played normal video games. And in addition to that, video games are teaching straightforward violence rather than self-defense topics, Mortal Kombat. Most of Asian martial arts teach self-defense. Whereas things like this, where in Mortal Kombat it shows Asian arts being used as aggressive behavior. And obviously kids are going to want to play these over age-appropriate alternatives. My older brother got Call of Duty, and my little brother was so jealous. My parents were like, "Oh, you can play Halo instead." Is killing an alien better than killing a human? I mean, you still have these weapons and things like that. In some, you know, like I said, everything is becoming more and more violent. TV, music, and video games, and our children are having less and less reaction to the outright violence being displayed.
All right, well, you do state the claim pretty early. You do also, however, add a tag claim into the claim, so you want to keep your proposition relatively simple, lose the tag claim at the end. There's some layout of the secondary points. I think the phrasing on those secondary points is a little bit awkward, and it tends to make it sound like it's going to be a narrative explanation as opposed to a series of declarative statements. The controversy on this subject is controversial. I think most people know that there's a dispute about the impact that these things have. You mentioned that violence is a major element of society that we should be concerned about. I don't think anybody challenges that. The question is, what's the relationship of these types of materials to the violence? And you need to be a little bit more assertive about the impact that it has. I think you did signpost the first of your supporting issues, but after that, the material tended to start to run together, and that needs to be cleaned up a little. You need to have a stronger structure in the body of the speech. For the most part, you explain principles pretty well. The follow-through on the evidence is not always as strong. We got some vague references to studies that dealt with kids' exposure to violence in a variety of places. You sound almost apologetic about the one study because they could only look at the kids for a few days. They couldn't study them for a whole year. I think you need a lot more extensive information on this subject in order to make the inference that the video games are having this sort of effect. And especially when you're talking about Roadrunner cartoons, let's see some data that suggests that that's had an impact. I mean, let's face it, Roadrunner cartoons have been around for 60 plus years. There ought to be some information that shows us that they're having an impact on the way kids perceive violence. And it just seems like it's mentioned in passing, but not really developed much as an argument. Sometimes the sources are presented, but not consistently. You make reference to a couple of the studies, for instance, and I didn't really get specific source citations on them. There was this study that was done someplace. The evidence and the connection to causality, I think, is the place where you need the most amount of work. You got a little panicky on the delivery at one point. Mistakes happen. Well, still, you probably want to avoid in giving a speech using too much crude language. And your answer to me